The end of the Cold War also meant the withdrawal of tactical nuclear weapons by the US and then the Soviet Union from global hotspots, including the Korean Peninsula. US troops remained, however, at the DPRK border. Then, in 1994, former US President Jimmy Carter went to Pyongyang in a bid to persuade DPRK leader Kim Il-sung to halt construction on nuclear reactors. Later that year, Washington and Pyongyang signed the agreed framework, freezing work on the reactors and the production of plutonium in return for fuel shipments and economic aid. The diplomacy, though difficult, bore fruit. In 2000, DPRK senior military leader Jo Myung-rok met with the US President Bill Clinton at the White House. Then US Secretary of State Madeleine Albright travelled to Pyongyang to meet leader Kim Jong-il in a bid to expand the agreed framework and pave the way for a presidential visit to Pyongyang. The attempt, however, failed.
Constitute an axis of evil.
But in 2002, George W. Bush, a new president in response to the 9/11 terror attacks, declared an axis of evil, lumping Pyongyang in with Washington's enemies in the Middle East. John Bolton, now the National Security Advisor, but then in charge of arms control of the State Department, accused the DPRK of cheating. Pyongyang accused Washington of reneging on its commitments, and the agreed framework fell apart. In 2003, blaming US aggression, Pyongyang pulled out of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, a signal that a nation is contemplating building an atomic bomb. After Pyongyang withdrew from the NPT, regional powers led by China held a series of so-called six-party talks. Despite intense diplomacy, Washington and Pyongyang remained at odds. In 2006, the DPRK conducted its first nuclear test. Sanctions followed. Even though the six-party talks lasted until 2009, a breakthrough remained elusive. Under Barack Obama, the US then embarked on a period of what is called strategic patience, trying to bring Pyongyang to the negotiating table with economic sanctions. A new DPRK leader, Kim Jong-un, banned international weapons inspections as he moved forward with a nuclear weapons program at an accelerated pace. The election of US President Donald Trump coincided with an escalation of nuclear and ballistic missile testing by Pyongyang and an escalation in hostile rhetoric from both leaders.
Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and for his regime. The United States is ready, willing and able, but hopefully this will not be necessary.
Both leaders threatened nuclear war. Kim Jong-un responded in a rare personal rebuke, calling the US president a dotard. But a turnaround came just as fast. Capitalizing on a peace offering made by Kim Jong-un in his New Year's address, South Korean President Moon Jae-in invited the DPRK to compete in the Winter Olympics. The two Koreas walked out as one team. Diplomatic meetings were held. 2 months later, a proposed summit.
North Korea, by the way, as you've probably seen, and we've been in touch with North Korea, we'll be meeting with them sometime in May or early June. And I think there'll be great respect paid by both parties, and hopefully we'll be able to make a deal on the denuking of North Korea.
And 2 visits to Pyongyang by US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, lots of behind-the-scenes diplomacy, and 1 cancellation letter from the US president led to the highest-level meeting between the two nations in nearly 20 years, setting the stage for a historic summit. While the Singapore summit is historic, in a way it's going against history. In the past, Pyongyang and Washington have negotiated the details in private first. Distrustful diplomacy behind the scenes. But these two leaders are taking a gamble that top-down diplomacy may work this time, and some agreement may happen in Singapore without anything really being on the table beforehand. The risks are high, but so could be the rewards. Nathan King, CGTN, at the White House.